Someone drop another comment. Let me see if it pops up on the screen. It had me rotate it and everything vanished. Oops. Well, I see there's a couple people here. Someone said hello. Hello. I've got a couple projects I'm going to do, but if I see questions pop up, I'll answer them. I just left it open because I haven't done live before. Pippi, I know that you're there. I cannot find a feature on here on how to share. Maybe I don't have privileges for that yet. I don't know. Maybe I don't have enough subscribers. I'm not sure. I pressed every single option I have on here. I have a mute, microphone, share, and save highlight. And let's see, Mike. Hey, what's happening, man? How you doing? It's having me scroll to read that. Mike, how long have you been following, man? Do you have any questions today? Right now, I'm thawing out some worms. I got to feed my pea puffers. I got to feed my tetras, and I'm going to be working on a project. I've got this Java fern is kind of getting out of control, and so I thought I'd work on this while waiting to see if I get questions from people about whatever. You can ask personal questions too if you just want to ask something about me personally. Feel free to do so. Oh wow, 6 months, huh? Awesome, man. Well, glad you're here. I typically say hi to everyone who comments on videos, but I'm glad you're here now talking. What kind of tank setup do you have, man? Or do you have multiple tanks? What do you got going on? Freshwater, saltwater, planted aquariums? Tell me about it. This Java fern is a total mess. That's why I don't like Java ferns. Look at this Crocomalacca. See, it grows like a rope. A vine that keeps going. Here's another one. This one's just dangling off of this. So I'm replacing it in a better spot so it's not just dangling off the back. And I had a bamboo shrimp living in this tank. I found him dead yesterday. He lived in here for about a year. Maybe I got him already as an adult, I don't know. Alright, so I'm going to test some water. Also, while I'm working on this, I need to test my shrimp tank. Here I've been testing it every day because I got Caridina shrimp in there, so I've been pretty paranoid about whether or not they're going to make it. That was $600 was spent on those 50 plus shrimp in that tank. This needs a water change. $340. So I guess I'm going to do that also. So some plant art. 36-gallon bow front, gravel only, planted with some awesome crypts. My values are really taking off. Or do you mean Val, like Vallisneria? But my Amazon swords suck. I'm not a fan of Amazon sword because if you're having a hard time, they require a lot of nutrients, like a lot. Every couple months you should be sticking root tabs underneath them, or they'll start wilting and turning. Leaves will start turning like this. Now, if it's just the outer leaves that are going brown, that's normal. But if you have leaves in the center that are crapping out on you, yeah, you have a problem. They absorb every bit of nutrients, and their roots will also spread out amongst, you know, the entire bottom of your tank. Valves, yeah, not values. Okay, awesome. Crypts. I love crypts. They're my favorite right now. My favorite plants tend to change, but I love crypts right now because of how slow they grow. They don't need nearly as much upkeep. But yeah, I can tell you right now, if you're having issues with your Amazon sword, it's just because it needs way more nutrients than everything else. They, in my opinion, they are way heavier feeders than Vallisneria are. Probably the heaviest feeders I've ever experienced. Because crypts grow so slow, they don't need upkeep on the nutrients intake as often as Amazon swords. I had one in here when I started this 40-gallon a couple of years ago. I put one in the center, and it needed a root tab about every 4 weeks. When it says those tabs are good for like 3 months, it needed one like once a month, or it would just start dying. And then when I looked underneath this, because it's a glass bottom, I planted on the left side, and I saw its roots had grown 2.5 feet all the way across. So it was ridiculous. And because of that, I no longer like Amazon swords unless they're the compacts, which are only a few inches tall, and the rosettes. I do have several in here that I traded out for that. I pulled the Amazon sword out, and I think it was also affecting my other plants as well, because when I removed it, the plants I had around it all started coming back to life. So I took that as it was stealing from the rest of the plants in my tank. And especially if you don't have a dirt, if you're using gravel, the Amazon sword's going to need way more fertilization. And you can do a successful planted tank in gravel. I have seen YouTubers that say you can't, but you can. You just, you need to feed your plants. Okay, yeah, you're not feeding them. If you had a dirt substrate, I did a video the other day on how to make your own root tabs. You cannot stick those in gravel. So, what are you even buying? Are you buying API root tabs or Seachum, or I wouldn't recommend using Aquarium Co-op in gravel because those will float out on you. Oh, this is a mess. There's some moss that I'll feed to the shrimp. Don't be scared to speak up. See a couple of you in here creeping. Ask some questions. You can ask me some personal questions too. If you've been following me for a while and you just want to know who I am, I'll tell you. Unless it's a ridiculous question I won't answer. And by the way, my friend in here who's watching, Pippi, she has her own channel. It's called Pippi Talks Tanks. She's one of my subscribers. She's been following me for about a year, and she started her own channel. I'm really proud of her for that. And I posted a picture of her tank before in some of my videos. They're amazing. Oh, yeah. Pippi was just saying that she's tried them. Yeah, they're little green capsules, and they don't load them all the way. Like when I make my own root tabs, I know that I need to stuff them as tightly as I can, because if I don't, if there's an air pocket in here, those will float out too. And Aquarium Co-op, they treat their root tabs like a bag of potato chips. You know, when you open a bag of potato chips, it's half the bag is nothing but air, and then the other half is chips. Those Aquarium Co-op tabs, I've opened one. They're only half full, and the other half is just an air pocket. So it's so buoyant. If you don't have a very dense substrate, they balloon out. And even if you do get it all the way in there, they start to inflate. It's pretty annoying. So I can't speak on whether or not they're good fertilizers or not, because the next morning I'll wake up and they've exploded open and all the nutrients is dumped into the water column. So for me, that signifies good fertilizer but crappy root tab. Hey, my Aunt Kelly's here. Hey Kelly, how you doing? Love you too. Doing good. doing a live talk right now about aquariums, although we can really talk about whatever. And I'm working on a Java fern project. I let this plant get out of control. I got babies growing on babies and growing on babies. It's another reason why I don't like Java ferns. Grow slow, but when it's time to deal with them, you're going to be dealing with them for a while. Hey, Stony, what's happening, man? And you're right. I'm doing fantastic. Why? Because we're talking about plants. That's why. I'm always in a good mood when I get to have plant projects. And I knew I was going to have a couple today. Keep myself busy. So I wouldn't just like doing that. That would be weird. Right? Maybe. I don't know. I've watched live feeds before. Sometimes they are kind of like awkward like that. Look at this baby. This baby was just growing off a string off of this driftwood. And I have noticed that driftwood does start falling apart after about a year. Don't boil it. It makes it worse. This is one of the first pieces I bought several years ago, and I boiled it and I shouldn't have, and it's falling apart. And it doesn't release tannins anymore either, which is kind of upsetting. So now it's just a decorative piece. It doesn't really do anything beneficial for my tank at all. Stony, tell me a little bit about some of your scapes, man. I wish you guys could post your tanks in the comments, because I'd love to see some of y'all's aquariums, because a lot of y'all have been following me for a while, and often I always wonder what your tanks look like. Some of you I've actually become friends with when we talk over the phone. Pippi, you show me your tanks all the time, and they're so gorgeous in comparison to what you showed me, 9 months ago. That 55 you got, man, I'm jealous of it. And I think it looks better than mine. But I can't go back in time and change mine. So it's a wooden scape now. A tree scape. Here's some growing back here. How did this even get back here? I don't know. These guys have... This one has embedded itself in the crevices. Look at these roots. What is this? Java fern. What's your angle, bro? You don't even have one. You're just all over the place. I'm going to tell you, though, while I'm working on this project, and I'm going to be replanting this onto some wood, your plants are going to, whenever you move plants, they hate it. Doesn't matter what kind of plant it is, it's going to be traumatized. So, when I replant it right here, and if you've ever bought Java fern, you never see them like this, like a rope, do you? No. You see them in little bunched up pods like this, and it's a bunch. What they do when they have when someone's propagating and selling these, like at big chain stores, PetSmart, Petco, or even at Aquarium Co-op or any local fish store, so someone sells these to companies. They take one like this, they go between each plant and snip it off and turn it in this right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 leaves. This is one plant, and they turn it into 8. And then they sell it as one, charge you $10 for it. Unnecessary. Keep it like this. Especially if you're gonna propagate Java fern, don't propagate it 8 times all at once. Like this, I would split it into 2, maybe max. Plants do stress out. Can they express it verbally? No. Do they have a brain? They don't. But they express it through the way that they look. And when plants aren't feeling it, they show you through their leaves and everything else. They start turning brown and yellow and all kinds of nasty stuff. And then Java fern, this one got too close to the light. That's what happened to that one. And this is all converted. At one point, this thing was completely covered with a plant that I had bought. All of that melted and died, and then new plants started to grow. So these are all new plants from the original one that I had bought. So I actually have more than what I started with. This one's actually in a good spot. And then trimming the roots also. You've been watching my videos, you know I say trim the roots. You trim the roots so they can start absorbing as much nutrients as possible, to help them get over the transition. The whole transition is terrible for any plant. And anyone who tries to say that there are plants that don't melt, they all do. You know, even Anubias. I mean, you may get lucky in Anubias, you know, you don't lose any or one leaf or something like that, but in general, every plant's gonna show it. Ah, yeah, dirt in a 40 for Cory. The little Cory catfish. I've never had those. I have had some people tell me in the past. I think Pippi has said that she's had some and they dig around in her plants. I stay away from bottom feeders and like algae eaters. Because, you know, my first concern is my plants. I'm always out to protect my plants. And anytime I get an animal that I see start screwing with my plants, this animal's got to go. And no, I don't kill them. I just find a new home for them. Except for my pea puffers. My pea puffers have completely destroyed this 10-gallon. And they're just so cute. I can't get rid of them. When they sleep, they like to burrow down like a couple inches into the sand and dirt, and then when I come in the morning and flip on all my lights, they go pew, and they explode out of the sand and dirt, and just it's my whole tank gets cloudy. And every time they did that, any stem plants I had in there would come exploding up with them. The only plants that made it were my cryptocorns. I have 3 in there that are just their roots are really thick, so they were never uprooted because of their sleeping habits. But yeah, everything else. And then it caused my dirt to switch. So now my sand cap started to go below my dirt. So now my dirt is above my sand. So now it looks and acts just like the bottom of a lake. You know, so if you're in a lake and you walk, dirt goes and gets cloudy for a second and settle. That's what happens in there. But I love my pea puffers. They're this big. There's only 2 in there. And they completely screwed up all the plants. The few Corys I had were little rascals. Oh yeah, one named Lefty. He had a bigger left fin. He would intentionally stalk my tweezers. He was the Pennywise of the fish world. Used to yell at him when doing maintenance. They're meticulous plant helpers. Very good at cleaning moss, hornwort. I do like hornwort. For stem plants, I prefer the floating ones. Hornwort, guppy grass, water sprite, and water wisteria. I mean, you can plant those, but I prefer to leave them floated because they can do great floated. And when they get out of control, here's a pile of guppy grass right here. I can just grab a piece, tear it off, throw it in another tank, or throw it in the trash, unfortunately. But, you know, I have been known to give some free plants away to you guys, but I had to stop doing that. Almost worm feeding time, and then I get to selectively pick 10 unlucky snails from that tank to throw into my pea puffer tank because I can't just live off bloodworms. They love snails. And I've seen the big puffer fish, you know, the ones that get like this big, eating, you know, large like apple snails, and they crush the whole shell. These little guys, they don't crush the shell up. They flip the snail over and suck it out, and then leave the shell intact. Float them too. Nummy nummies. Nummy num. I don't know why I gotta poke the screen to read the comments. That's weird. Maybe it's just my thumb. Maybe I don't have all the privileges yet. I have no idea. Trimming roots. And then I trim the rear end here. The rhizome. This puppy's going to be starting over. Well, not starting over. This is fully grown underwater, so it's not going to experience melt like that. Oh God, this is nastiness. I never found the body of my bamboo shrimp. I found a molt, but I couldn't find him. Oh, wow, what is this? That's interesting. Have to identify that plant. And hey, ooh, elder cones. Oh, those disintegrated. I found out something new about. No, I don't name my fish. I quit naming my fish. Mike, do I use liquid ferts? When I'm starting a tank off, I will use liquid ferts. Once my tank is well established with animals, I stop with liquid fertilization. It's not needed anymore. Dirt lasts a significantly long time. Some of these tanks have been running for well over a year off the same dirt that I don't do anything to. And the reason I don't have to keep up with liquid fertilization is because when you have the appropriate amount of animals in your tank, everything you feed them, whatever's in your food, so make sure your food has that you feed your animals. I feed mine fluval bug bites because they have a high amount of all kinds of vitamins and minerals. Everything you feed your fish, not only are they producing ammonia, which ergo then makes nitrates, that waste also provides all of the other elements that your rhizome plants will need. So once I've had animals in there, I'll let a tank run for at least 3 months, put animals in there, the correct number, and when they've been in there for about a month, then their waste has now made an establishment in there too. And it's not just feeding the rooted plants. Everything that's coming off then feeds your rhizome plants. And you have enough plants in there. It doesn't matter how you could take a personal dump in your tank, and your plants will take care of the problem for you. Yes, I do like liquid ferts. I've got several. If you want some recommendations on my favorites, I'll be happy to give those to you. Actually, I'll show you. Let me go grab them. All right, so stay away from Seachum. Now, plants, I've talked about macronutrients before. Macronutrients are essentially 4 elements that plants have to have in massive quantities. The number 1 is nitrogen. Number 2 is potassium, phosphates, and iron. Okay, so when I'm looking at fertilizers, those are the first 4 things that I'm looking for. I'm also looking for it in my soil. I want my soil to have nitrogen and potassium and phosphates as high as possible. So when I see a company focusing on like magnesium and calcium, which Seachum does, those are elements you don't need because it's already in your tap. So one is, I am slow to dose ferts, but all plants do need a little boost from time to time. Very much do. Right, yeah. If you want to fertilize on occasion, that's fine. For me, I have no issues laying off of it for months at a time. But yeah, it doesn't hurt at all. So anyway, for liquid ferts that if I were to use on occasion or when I'm starting a tank, Aquarium Co-op has the highest amount of nitrogen. It's 2.66, and their phosphates are 0.46, and then the potassium 9%. That's awesome. Now they do sell an iron, but this iron is only 0.26 per pump. So when it comes to iron, like if you have a lot of red plants, Fluval has the highest concentration of iron. This one's 0.65 per dose. It's the highest amount I've ever seen in iron from any fertilizer. So if I'm just going to do iron, I would do the Fluval. But yeah, oh, and Thrive too. Thrive. I don't have any Thrive right now, but I've used it in the past. Thrive has nitrogen over 3%. So anytime you're exploring for fertilizers, look for those four elements first: high nitrogen, high potassium, high phosphates, and iron. Everything else, they're concentrating on magnesium and calcium. Those are two elements that aren't needed because it's already in your tap, or if you're using buffers, your buffers provide that. So they're giving you excess elements that aren't needed. And then, or if you're noticing, they have higher amounts of the micronutrients. So if you see like zinc and copper and boron are 1% or higher, but your nitrogen and potassium are less than 1%, that is exact opposites. It shouldn't be that way. Like I said, yeah, you can. You can dose your just because I quit dosing my tanks after 4 to 5 months doesn't mean that you can't. Hey, bro, you're not the only one with arthritis issues. Look at my hands. I have psoriatic arthritis. So trust me, I know. I don't like typing either. People text me. I'm not about that. I don't want to message someone. Call me. Let's talk on the phone like a normal person, like back in the 90s. Okay? I'm not going to have a conversation with you like this. Watch dots go up and down to respond. But I feel you, brother. I wish we could all talk live and nobody has to type. That would be cool. Hold on, I'm going to have a sip of my beverage. Coke. Coca-Cola! Seriously, Diet Coke tastes like shit. I don't know what... I mean, I'm having it because it's the only form of caffeine I have right now. But, I mean, it tastes like carbonated piss. It tastes nothing like Coca-Cola Classic. My worms are almost ready. Unbelievable. I just spilt my worms. Fortunately, I have a concrete floor. Hey, let's just have a oopsie daisies with your goofy ass fingers on live TV. Here you go, guys. Eat up. Oh, criminy. Stoney, what kind of dirt are you using on that tank, man? Organic soil? You said you were dirting it. Are you capping it with anything or just using straight dirt? And look at this oddball plant I found growing loosely. This can't be a Java fern. That can't be a Java fern, can it? No. The leaves are way too smooth. That looks nothing like a baby Java fern. I need to identify that. A Discord channel on YouTube? I wish I could help you all. There's sometimes whenever somebody comments on my channel, I could feel their frustration, and I know that my comment isn't going to be good enough. There were so many times when I started doing this that I would watch a YouTuber and I wasn't getting the particular type of answer that, that I wanted. It's super frustrated. And anytime I see someone commenting and I know it's there and I do my best to simplify a response, but I'm like, man, I wish I could just get on the phone and just help this person right now or go to their house and just show them. Because for me, I'm a visual learner and a hands-on learner. I need to know, I need to see with my own eyes and do it with my own bare hands. Because there are people who tell you stuff that isn't true, and that's mostly because they're just trying to sell stuff on YouTube, and that really ticks me off too. If I've been watching someone for 30 minutes just to find out that the entire video was because they were promoting an LBJ product and not because they were trying to educate me on anything. Ah, yeah, organic soil. I hate Diet Coke. I quit all soda anyway. I love flavored sparkling water though. Oh yeah, sparkling water is awesome. There's a new one. Give me a second. I'll think of what it is. There's a new one. Organic soil, but a lot of YouTube people have them. There is a voice section where people can get on chat. And hey, Stony, did you look at the nitrogen content in your organic soil? I've noticed that some will have, 10%, and some can have as much as 30%. The more the merrier for me. Because I have had people ask me what organic soil brand you use. I don't stick to a brand. I go to the hardware store and I look at all of them, and I base my decision off which one has the highest amount of nitrogen, phosphates, and potassium. Whichever one has the highest wins. Because they're all around like $10 for a 20-pound bag. What are you doing to me, Java Fern? All right, now I need some cotton. Actually, some rock wool would do good. Lately, whenever I glue plants, I've been using a tiny bit of cotton or rock wool, like this, and then gluing it to the rhizome, and then gluing it to the piece of wood or rock that way. It actually sticks to rock a lot easier if you use cotton or rock wool. I always have lots of rock wool because I've ordered so many freaking plants that I have like copious amounts of the little plastic cups that they come in, and they all have, piles of rock wool. Menards, bone meal, GNN 12%, 0.12%. When using cotton, does it matter what you use? Yes, make sure there's nothing in it. Do you have any fragrant cotton that has fragrances in it of any kind? It'll be toxic to everything. So, plain cotton. And that goes the same for Epsom salt. If anyone adjusts their own water hardness, like you don't use your tap and you use buffers and you use Epsom salt for your magnesium, and then like crushed coral for your calcium, make sure when you use Epsom salt, because a lot of Epsom salt now is mostly used for people soaking their feet, so they all have like lavender essence and stuff like that in there. Make sure you buy plain, ordinary, run-of-the-mill Epsom salt, and it is harder to bump into than, and I'll show you what brand you should get. I have some right over here. Give me 1 second. Rexall, plain ordinary Epsom salt. Dollar Tree, yeah, I got this. I got this at a Dollar General. I live in a small town. I'm in Paynesville, Minnesota. Our population here is like 900, but I don't know what it is. Every small town seems to have a Dollar General and a Dairy Queen. Why? And I'm from Texas. Dairy Queen started in Texas, but yet every small town in every state, well, no grocery stores, nothing. We're going to sell tractors, sell ice cream. Let's put a dollar store right over there. If I want to go to an actual store, I got to drive 40 minutes. What kind of water do you guys use? And if you use your tap, do you know what's in it? Do you test your tap and see what's in there? I've never used well water. I have had subscribers say I use well water, so no big deal. I don't even know what that means anymore. What is that? What is well water? Is that like you have a giant tank underground or something? I'm getting city water, and I'm in a podunk town out in the middle of nowhere. So why do I have the worst water on the planet? Town water. We have there's in this town, fortunately, for some oddball reason, there is a public RO machine, and that's where I get my water from. So I have like 5-gallon jugs and I have some filled right now, and a bunch of gallon jugs, and it costs 35 cents per gallon. Maybe once a week I need 10 gallons of it, so it's not very expensive. I spend less than $5 a week on water. And then I add buffers. If you've watched my videos before, I actually use I use a Caribbean sand as my buffers, and what I love about it mostly, let me show it to you. I've tried crushed coral in the past, but crushed coral does dissolve over time. This stuff lasts indefinitely, doesn't go anywhere. It will release. Some of these tanks have had the same sand in it for a year and a half, and it hasn't gone anywhere. I buy RO at Cub. Okay, yeah, we have Cubs here in Minnesota. Pippi says she has good water. Ugh, hate you. You and your good water people. Where's my good water? I won't even drink my tap water. It's like drinking water from the sea. Oh, and by the way, this Caribbean sand, it doesn't just provide your general hardness. Your general hardness and your carbonate hardness. It also provides macronutrients that plants need. It has lots of potassium in there, which I love. That's another reason why I don't need ferts, is because my buffers also provide some of the macronutrients, phosphates and potassium this provides to plants. And then nitrates, all of that, the nitrogen, my fish provide. And then, of course, fish food does that also. It doesn't necessarily have to be eaten. If uneaten food becomes the same as fish waste. This tank right here, I haven't fertilized it all year with liquid ferts. It's just living off of the substrate. But I have very few rhizome. Just my guppy grass. I do have a lot. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 7 Anubias, but 2 of them are dwarf Anubias. The little Nana Petite golden ones. They're about that big. I remember when I bought it, they were kind of expensive. They were $20 for 2 of them. And they have not grown a millimeter. They are the same size, and they've been in here for a year. I mean, they look cool. Maybe for a nano tank, but not for... I like bigger tanks. They're easier to manage. Where's my towel? Fluval gravel? Are you talking about fluval stratum? I have one. No, I have 2. So yeah, I think Pippi, you're talking about the Coffeefolia Nubius that I bought, and I made a video, wondering what the heck was going on with them. The only conclusion I could come up with is that I got a batch that had Anubias rot, and I did a lot of reading on Anubias rot. It's a particular disease that happens just to Anubias. Nobody knows how it happens, and the whole plant just dies. So if you ever have an Anubias and it melts all the way, there's a good chance it's Anubias rot, but it's still speculation. There's no way to truly know if it's Anubias rot or if it's something else. If your lighting is right and you've been giving it a proper amount of nutrients and it's still dying on you, after process of elimination, you can say it's Anubias rot. So 2 bounce back all the way, and 1's growing back. Fluval stratum. I used to start off only using fluval stratum. It is an awesome substrate, and it also buffers, and it's also an active substrate, so it'll lower your pH a little bit, which is great because it makes it slightly acidic. It's so expensive. The very first tank I made, I did it in a 10-gallon, and it was awesome. And I was like, okay, well, then I started a 40-gallon after that, and I spent over $100 just on substrate for that tank. And I knew at that point I had multiple tank syndrome because I just needed to make tank after tank after tank. This storage room, my notorious enclosure, basement under the stairs, these are where all my giant tanks are. I needed something a little bit more price friendly because I just couldn't. I couldn't keep doing the Fluval. But it's a great substrate. I just couldn't afford it. And then when I tried dirt for the first time, I was worried about it because I even saw really experienced aquascapers who were complaining about it, that, if you don't do it right, it makes a huge mess. That was everyone's, defense about it, is that it's just messy. Yeah, you get massive growth with dirt, but it's messy and hard to deal with. Well, I mean, if you take your time, it's actually not hard to deal with at all. I haven't had any serious issues except minor mistakes here and there that were easy fixes. Your first time doing dirt, it definitely has much higher nutrients, organic soil, than fluval stratum does. Which color is the best in WRGB for plant and not algae? Identify the acronym for me, please. I like Seachum Fluorite Black. Oh yeah, that's the one product of Seachum I'm okay with. Yeah, it's inert. It doesn't alter anything. Which color is the best? Expensive though. Yeah, I've got it once, and I think it was, $15 for a 7-pound bag. WRGB. Yeah, you'll have to explain that acronym. I'm not very good with acronyms. Ugh. All right. These I've decided aren't going anywhere. So this one I'm going to put back. This looks like a solid place for it. Yeah, right here. Cool. Here's my cotton. Oh, you're asking which color is the best for your plants and as light goes? For me, well, if you were to research what each colored light does for plants, they all actually do something different. Full spectrum lights are important to me, but if you're going to use one, at a minimum, your lighting needs to have white, obviously, and then at a bare minimum, blue and red. If you don't have at least blue and red with that white, you're not giving them everything that you want, and you're not going to have the best success of just white and blue. Anubias will do okay on that, so will some Java ferns, but other plants want all the lights. So on these, I have my smaller tanks both have hygers and a fluval. The fluval has all the lights. All my hygers have, except for this high-powered spectrum, has everything. So yellow, orange, red, blue, purple, white, green, all of them. But the three most important that I feel you have to have for plants, or that I know you have to have, is white, red, and blue. Red controls how densely and thick and wide your plants grow, and blue controls how tall. Yeah, Pippi's asking you a question about what type of algae you have. I don't have very serious algae issues. I kind of got that one that one figured out. Except for the tanks that I want it in. Any of my shrimp tanks, I have to have algae and biofilm on the glass. It's a must. Shrimp need it. So I don't clean the glass off because of that. That's the food for the babies. I mean, I also give them other foods for babies. If you do shrimp, I do Dinnerel baby food. It's a powder, and that like sticks to glass and helps grow biofilm and whatnot. It's also made out of birch. Oh, blue-green algae. Man, my shrimp love that stuff. Pippi, maybe you can help them out on that. I have experienced blue-green algae before. The only places I've ever had it, though, are on the outtake of my HOBs. Like the slope, I've seen it growing on there before. That stuff seems to like fast-moving water and a lot of light. But I don't use any chemicals or anything to destroy algae. Algae's not bad for a tank. It really isn't. Even hair algae. But I have animals that like that stuff. So if I have a tank in a spot of hair algae that starts to grow, I harvest it and feed it to my shrimp and then turn my lights down so the algae doesn't grow back. And then I stop ferts also. Overdosing fertilizers, overfeeding your fish, and having an overstocked tank, those are three main contributors to algae. So anytime someone's having algae problems, I'll say, crank down your lights, stop with the ferts, and don't feed your fish for a couple days. You don't need to feed your fish every single day. Some people actually think they need to feed their fish twice a day. You don't. A hungry fish is a healthy fish. So yeah, I only feed mine every other day, and that does help with the algae. And I use a lot of floaters too. Floaters help stop algae for two ways. One, they dim the lights, and secondly, they absorb all the excess nitrates out of the water and stop. It doesn't give algae a chance. The more plants you have in your tank, they're going to defeat algae also, because algae needs room. Plants have huge leaves for photosynthesizing. They can grab massive amounts of light. Okay, algae can't. Algae needs lots of light and lots of room. So to battle that, the more plants you have, the more photosynthesizing they're going to be doing, and nitrate absorbing they're going to be doing, and that will, ergo battling and preventing algae issues. All right, let's see here. Should have brought my spray bottle. And I'm using Crazy Glue. Anyone who's wasted $10 on Seachum plant glue, you don't need to. I got this for $1.99 at the dollar store. Crazy Glue. Just make sure it's in a gel form. Cyruncolite, that's the ingredient. If it's got cyruncolite in it, it's perfectly safe for your plants and your water. It doesn't dissolve any toxins into your water. Carbonated piss water. Yes, Kelly, that is glue. I am using Crazy Glue to glue my plants. I have funky fingers. It doesn't seem to matter what kind of glue I use. I end up getting all over myself. Like I just dropped. Look what I just did to the Coke can. That was because I just stuck my thumb to it. I couldn't get my thumb off. I got 2 more. No, 3 more. I can't tell if this Java Fern is a lost cause or what. Yeah, scored some algae. There we go. Shrimp feast. Once you get into shrimp, man, they take over. You get in the shrimp hole, you can't dig yourself out. Like, I'm seriously excited in 2 years when those tetras back there die so I can turn that 40 gallon into another shrimp tank. I mean, I don't want them to die. I'm just, I know how long they're going to live. I've had those Sarpe tetras for a couple years. They only live for about 4 years, maybe 3 or 4. I just put, oh, here we go. Cotton, ho, 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 ho. I've never gone live before, so this is awkward for me. And I've been granted permission to go live for like 6 months, by YouTube, and I don't know. I felt like I'd have a panic attack or something. Like only talking to like one person. Where should I stick this? Here we go. All right, Kelly, let me see. What did you... Can't keep Java Fern alive for some reason. LOL. Everything else has done well. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Can you tell me about API leaf care and Tropica nutrients, which is better for roots? I cannot speak about Tropica. I've never used it. I'm aware of it, but I've never used it. API Leaf Zone, and I saw a couple questions. API Leaf Zone only provides potassium and iron, and I do like it as a feeder for rhizome plants. Java ferns, they want a lot of potassium. They are potassium hogs. So for that reason, I find API great for Java ferns. Now, Angie Bear, let me tell you something about Java ferns. A lot of people don't realize that Java ferns, you don't get this information. When you buy Java ferns, they're going to melt. They're going to die. They're going to turn black on you and completely melt. So what you're waiting on is you're waiting on the leaf that you got from the store. Separate them for one thing. Make sure it doesn't have a black string tied around the roots. That kills them too. And you're waiting on a little batch of babies to grow off of it. Now, that batch of babies that were born underwater, that's your aquatic plant. The one before it that's dying on you is trash. Okay? So that's a piece of information that people don't realize. And because Java ferns grow and die so slow, quite often people just think they keep killing their plants when in fact it's going through its melting process and you're waiting for it to grow the tiny babies that it's duplicated off the tip of the leaves, and those you harvest, and those are aquatic. Those will be your aquatic plant. The one before it was grown immersed. So immersed grown plants, they weren't grown underwater. The roots were submerged in really damp soil, that way, in buckets that are, high humidity and all that, but they were not grown underwater. And because of that, when they are placed underwater, now they're not getting the high amount of CO2 that they were used to getting. So that is a huge dramatic change, and it causes plants to go through a transition. So aquatic plants that normally grow underwater, that are used to those conditions, when people propagate them immersed, they've now switched them from being aquatic plants to immersed grown plants, and now it's your job to turn them back into aquatic plants. So when you plant Java ferns, you're waiting for those babies to grow that you then harvest, replant those, and throw the old one away. after it's already, grown all the babies. So after like 6 months, you've noticed it all has like turned black and all that, and you think you've killed it. Check it first to make sure you don't have little tiny leaves growing off some of them. Those are the plant that are going to make it. All of these were all born underwater. These are all different Java ferns from a year and a half ago. Yeah, give it another shot. But trust me, if you're having a hard time with Java ferns, trust me, you're not the only one. If you ever watch my video on my 5 like worst aquarium plants, Java ferns is like number 1 for me. And for some reason, every single YouTuber's like, 5 top best aquarium plants, Java ferns. And then everyone wants to try Java ferns. And then everyone thinks they're killing Java ferns. And then everyone's confused. And then they think, I can't even keep Java ferns alive. Well, hey, if you're going to spread the message to tell people to buy Java ferns, tell the whole damn story. Let people know what they're in for. Don't just say, hey, Java ferns are easy. There you go. You just stick it in your tank. There it is. No. You're waiting on it to duplicate aquatic plants that will actually make it underwater while you're waiting 6 months for the original one to die. Other plants are more obvious. Crypts, in a matter of 48 hours, let you know they're not happy making the transition from immersed to submerged. They start melting right away. But yeah, and I do have a playlist that I dedicated just to Java ferns because I find them so annoying. And I had to figure that out the hard way myself. Because like everyone else, I started off with Java ferns also. Yeah, I mean, any local fish store is going to have, half their plants are going to be Anubias and half are going to be Java ferns. So even if someone didn't tell you to start with that, you're going to start with it because they're cheap and there's a lot of them. And yeah, first time I dealt with Java ferns, I saw that they were dying, and I just kind of started putting 2 and 2 together on my own. And I pulled the old plant out, left the babies in, and I just noticed that the babies weren't having the same reaction. And then it occurred to me that the babies had been born underwater, and all Java ferns are all propagated commercially immersed, and that's because they grow faster immersed. Plants grow much slower underwater, and that's because they get less CO2. This is why people, there are some aquascapers that like high-tech aquariums where you inject CO2 that makes them pick up the pace and grow like they would if they were out of water. You don't need that. It does cost extra money to do CO2, and it's a monthly, you're having to go out every month and buy tanks of CO2, and it can be expensive depending on the size of your tank. This is why nano tanks are popular, because people have realized it's a lot cheaper to run CO2 in a 5-gallon tank than it is in a 70-gallon tank. Yeah, Angie Bear. One of the first conversations I had with Pippi 9 months, 10 months, a year ago, almost a year ago, one of her first questions, I think that was. I think she literally commented saying, I can't keep Java ferns alive. Sad face. I can't do it. With rhizome plants, the most friendly, beginner-friendly rhizome plant is Anubias. They don't completely die all the way. Java ferns die all the way. But they can die all the way several ways. If you didn't inspect the roots and it's got a little black string on there, and I've shown that, I recorded a whole session where I opened up a brand new pack of Java ferns, and they tied a black string that was the same like circumference and width, the thread, as the roots. So at first glance, it just looks like a mess of roots. And I had caught it by accident, and I was like, what the heck? So I went out and I bought another one, and it had string on there too. And then one of my older Java ferns that were melting all the way, I went in and I pulled it off the rock that I'd attached it to, and sure enough, there was a string months and months later still attached to it, and I unraveled it, and it was 4 Java ferns tied together. It blew my mind. And I found those strings on, I only find those strings at large chain stores. PetSmart and Petco being the the biggest ones. And yes, I still go there and buy plants from them. Just there's things you need to look out for before you deal with their plants. My favorite, though, from PetSmart and Petco are their tissue cultures. I love tissue culture plants. Right now, yeah, I'm having a huge thing for cryptocorns. I've planted 8 different species now in this 55-gallon that's been going for 6 months. Oh, and I did a couple art projects here I'm excited about. I made some videos for it. I made a floating substrate ball out of crystal wart. Oh, man, I want to show you guys. It's awesome. You can't even see it. It just looks like a floating ball in the middle of my tank. It's sweet. Actually, I'm going to show you guys. It's cool. Bam! Yeah! It's just floating and levitating in the middle of my tank. I made it out of crystal wart. How to do it, I don't know. You have to wait for the video. It's pretty awesome. All right, one more Java fern. I've got a glue here. And yes, Kelly, I know you were asking me about the glue. There is safe glue you can use on plants, on any plant. It's got to have an ingredient called cyrenchrolite. All right. This is my last one. And I still haven't even decided what the heck is going on with this. Java ferns are so confusing, man. I mean, seriously, I think cryptocorns are easier to plant than Java ferns. But when I see hundreds of people all complaining about the same plant and they all feel like they can't aquascape based off one plant, the plant's the problem, not the person. Java ferns are the issue. And that's because the majority of YouTubers, and even Googling it, don't explain a couple things to you about the plant. Oh yeah, Bobitis. That's that micro kind of form of Java ferns. Oh yeah, Gorilla Glue works great too. I'm using Crazy Glue. But I have all kinds of different glue types that I just look on the back of the package. If I see it says gel and it has cyrenchrolite, I know it's good. And I've dealt with a lot of plants. I have officially planted and propagated every aquatic plant that you will find, period, in the hobby. In every tank. So much so that now I feel bad because every week I have to go clear plants out and I don't know what to do with them most of the time. So I'll throw them in the yard and just let them like decompose into the grass. That way I feel like at least it's giving something back as opposed to just throwing it in the garbage. I won't flush fish either. And don't be flushing your fish! You really want to euthanize a fish? Feed it to another one or give it away. So therefore, don't euthanize it. Don't go killing fish. And that reminds me. Let me tell you something. I was actually curious once to find out what happens to a fish when you flush it and it's alive. Oh my God, they go through the worst death imaginable. Okay, so they don't die right away. They actually go through. It can be miles of piping. That does have some excrement in there, that the excrement is then separated through filters. So it goes rapidly through miles of piping, and then till it gets to the main area where everyone's feces goes. And then when it drops down in there, it gets instant anemonical shock, with just it goes into like arrested development, and then it gets the most painful dose of ammonia all at once, and so its entire body, every cell is poisoned with ammonia all at once. It goes into shock, and it experiences essentially the worst pain imaginable for about 10 seconds. And that's after going through a pitch dark water ride for several miles. Dead fish are great in outdoor gardens. They are. And actually, because I do ecosystems, like self-running ecosystems, I don't overstock my tanks. If I do find a dead fish, and it hasn't been consumed by other fish or invertebrates or whatever, I'll actually just take it and shove it down into my soil like a root tab. So everything has a purpose, but yeah, that's a great idea. Dead fish, throw that in your garden if you have an outdoor garden. It snows 9 months out of the year here, so I can't do outdoor gardens. But in my ecosystems down here, yeah, I just shove them back into the dirt and treat it like a root tab. Or I let the community decide. I freeze them if they pass in the winter to put them in my flower bed. Oh, cool. So you're keeping dead bodies in your freezer. All right. Yeah, I like it. I think Dexter would too. Chill out. Hey, Mom, what's that fish doing? Chilling out. Get out. It's not a tuba. Right. That project is done. Cool. You know what? I don't know what to do. I'm just going to float that. Where's my towel? All right. A little chunk of wood. All right. Right into the tank with the shrimp. Hello, 64 Power. How you doing? Subaster Tang is my favorite. Hey, you know what? It's my favorite too. And you want to know why? Because it's not actually a moss. Okay? It's a liverwort or a fern. So it doesn't grow out of control like mosses. So I love crystal worts, liverworts, any mosses like that are my favorite, and they grow much slower. Like Christmas moss and Java moss. Man, I hate that stuff. It grows over everything. It attaches to the glass. Subaster Tang doesn't attach to anything. It's just a nice, beautiful cluster, and I have some right here. Nice big old pile of it. I put it in all my shrimp tanks, and they have their babies in there too, and it looks awesome. And I made a little ledge for it too, that it grows on the ledge and then starts growing down like vines. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, Subaster Tang by far out of all mosses, because if you're gonna buy it, it's gonna be in the moss section. Like if you're ordering off of like Boost Plants or Aquarium Co-op or whatever, or Dustin's Fish Tanks, it's in the moss section when it's not actually a moss, it's a fern. Or a crystal wort, I should say. Oh, Casey, yeah. Casey, yeah, you're in Texas? It snows once every 5 years in Texas. Singapore never get any snow, LOL. It's summer all year round. I don't like summer. I'm from Texas, and you'd think because I grew up there that I would have gotten, comfortable and used to it being 110 degrees because it's a desert, but no. I move here, snows 9 months out of the year, and I'm a Texan in a t-shirt and shorts with it negative 10 degrees outside, and all the Minnesotans are like, look at this crazy guy walking around. I'm like, psh, you're the ones that are crazy. This is free AC. You kidding me? You know how much it costs to keep my room this cold in Texas? Summer, all summer. So what do you do when it's when it's summer year round? Because like here, I have several tanks that don't need heaters. Like my shrimp tanks, I don't put heaters in them. I just let them go through the motions of seasons. But my tropical fish, like in here, I have several different types of tetras, and I do tetras in that tank too, and they need a heater in the winter. But but in the summertime, I can take it out because it gets 75 degrees in here. So all temperature acclimation. So they just get used to it if it's slightly warmer than it should be. If it's not snowing by December, I feel like something is wrong with the world. Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, by September, if I don't start, I'm like, during summer, and here summer's like 85 degrees, and I'm miserable. And everyone else is like, this is perfect weather. I'm like, no, it's not. It's hot. I'm like waiting for September. If I don't get a cold front by September, I'm getting ticked off at Mother Nature. I want my free AC. So I can turn the AC unit off and not have to pay for that. But yeah, I never got used to living in Texas in the heat. It just, I didn't like it. And I moved up here and it was like heaven. I'll be outside with my snowblower, plowing through 3 feet of snow in a tank top. And my neighbors, we're all out there at like 6 in the morning, snow plowing, and they're all looking at me. What's happening, guys? I just want to pass out. And my mom's had several heat strokes in Texas, so I don't know why she stays there either. We were at a flea market, and it was one summer in Texas, it was 112 degrees for 70 days straight. Even at night, it was in the triple digits. It was so hot, you couldn't even go swimming. The lake in Texas, Lake Travis, it had heated to boiling point. It was 90 degrees in that lake. So you could not cool off. How can anyone be cool with that type of what? I mean, I guess, yeah. So as someone was saying there in Singapore where it's hot all the time, you get used to it. I never got used to it. I spent 35 years in Texas. And I never got used to living in a desert. I was looking forward to the one cold front we got once a year and the snow that we got once every 5 years. And that snow is not real snow. It's snow, and it happens at like 3 in the morning every time, and it's melted by 7 a.m. as soon as the sun rises. So here it snows. We'll start getting it, definitely by December sometime, and then it just sticks for several. I mean, it's snowing right now. New Mexico. I've been to New Mexico. Yeah, I went to New Mexico a couple years ago. Man, they built a gravesite for that dude off of oh man, why can't I think of it right now? The drug show. Drug show on Netflix. Oh, now it's gonna blow my mind. I'm gonna end this and think of it. We don't need a heater in our tanks. Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, that's why I'm so glad that I got into shrimp. Because they don't need a heater at all. They can tolerate temperatures as low as 55 degrees. Man, in a 55-gallon tank, you need like a 200-watt, 250-watt heater. Those heaters are what kill your electricity, man. I mean, all of my LED lights, we're talking anywhere from 9 watts to maybe 40 watts max. On some of I have one light, my largest one is 65 inches long, and that one's 45 watts for LEDs. But the rest of mine are all like 9 to 15 watt LED lights. And then pumps are 5 watts. And then HOB filters, mine are 7 watts. And then that's it. Breaking Bad, yeah, that was it. Breaking Bad. Yeah, we went to New Mexico. And they made a grave site for him. Because he dies at the end of the series or whatever. They actually made a gravestone and put a cage around it, and there's like actively people who go there and throw flowers on a fictional character's. There's nothing in it. It's an empty grave. Us white people, man, we're crazy. We're crazy, man. Let's go mourn fictional characters. If I was going to mourn a fictional character, it would be Falcor from the Neverending Story. No, not Falcor, sorry, the horse. Atreyu? Come on! Get out of the mud! He's like sinking. He's like, don't let the dark get you! Don't be taken by the nothing! I'm telling you, that right there, that's the most heartbreaking scene I've ever seen in my entire life in a movie. And that had me bawling in tears, and it'll have me bawling as a grown man. It's worse than Forrest Gump. I miss you so much, Jen A. That part right there. That'll get a knot in your throat. Okay, so there's some manipulation with keeping floaters on with a hang on the back filter. I'm going to show you mine because there is a trick, and yeah, you have to. Physics are involved, and you need to learn the flow of how your outtake is sending the water. So I'm going to show you a perfect example here of what I do. All right, so I have my HV right in the center. It pushes right here to the edge, and the water goes this way, and the water goes this way, forcing all my floaters to go off to the side, and my bubbler I keep in the center, which then also pushes up. So this pushes vertically this way, and then I have my bubbles that push up vertically. The two combined keep everything away from the center, and everything, you see how everything is just staying in place? I don't need to do anything else than that, than just good water control. And yes, and you want to fill your water up pretty close to where the outtake, where it's sloping and pushing the water, not cascading into your tank like like a massive waterfall. Some people like to do that because they think it creates more bubbles, therefore creating more oxygen because of the surface agitation. It's not true. You only need the surface of your water in motion. Okay. So if you fill your water up to your outtake where the water is just pushing it, the water is in motion, and then it's making the oxygen exchange still that way. And then of course bubbles, too, if you do bubbles. Some of my tanks, my smaller shrimp tank, I just have bubblers in there. It doesn't need any serious filtration. This one back here that I have my Neos in, I haven't had to do a water change in it in over a year. It's a perfectly well balanced tank at this point. It has the exact amount of floaters and plants where my nitrates and everything and ammonia and everything stays at 0 all the time, and my TDS has never gone up above it staggers at 180. So it's always been that way. Keep floating plants and hanging back. Seems like the current always kills. The current will kill your water lettuce. The top of water lettuce does not being splashed on. Stephen Stephen has a good idea doing suction cups with tubing. And I'll show you what he's talking about. Where did I put it? Here it is. All right, so anytime you buy hosing or a pump, they're going to come with these little dividers that will help you split up a hose line and send hoses in opposite directions. Well, you can also just take a hose, snip a piece, make a circle, and connect both ends to where it closes off both ends, and then you have a floating ring of tubing, and it'll keep a barrier of your floaters away from that. I've done that before too. Before I started to really learn how to control my water flow, and it keeping my floaters away from the outtake, because water lettuce is much more sensitive than frog bait. It starts getting overly wet on top, it's most definitely going to show you by dying. Your bubblers on the side, have the water level up. Move it to the center and try dividing it first, and if that still doesn't work, raise your water level to where the outtake is pushing it and making a division down the center of your water tank. And if that still doesn't work, like I said, if you have any water pumps, they probably came with a whole bag of these. I have so many of these. And then if you had bought a pump, you needed to buy tubing. So tubings can run anywhere from 5 to 20 feet long. Cut yourself off a couple feet of that. Make a circle, close it off with one of these dividers, and there you go. And you just plop it in the middle, put it where you want it. Or you could actually put all your floaters in the center of that ring you made, and then it'll just hold on to all the floaters you want inside of it instead of around it, however you want to do it. And I have done that before. I did that in this tank. Worms. There you go, dudes. Yep. Steven knows. He's been there. I actually find floaters a very necessary part of a well-balanced ecosystem for several reasons. Not just the fact that they can help dim the lights, but because they grow, their root structure can grow all the way to the bottom of your tank. They help clear up your water column significantly. You will find with the heavily densely planted tank and floaters, you know, as much as you can have all the way across the top of your tank, they will pick up any toxins that weren't absorbed by your rooted plants. They help keep the water very clean, and you don't have to do water changes nearly as much. And eventually, once you've got a well-established ecosystem, some of my tanks haven't needed water changes in quite some time. My Neo tank, like I said, I haven't needed to do a water change in over a year. And yeah, I do test it regularly just in case. Make sure that there's no nitrites or nitrates or ammonia. And then if there isn't, I'll top it off with more RO water. And that's all I've had to do for about a year with that tank. It's got the perfect amount of plants and inhabitants where everything works in a perfect circle. I don't remove dead bodies either. And there's hundreds of animals in there. So, you know, some die, you know, I let nature run its course in that tank. And actually shrimp, if they don't eat the leftovers, I've actually seen them bury a body before. And I love shrimp. I cannot wait to see what kind of Taiwan bees I get out of the all the different species I put in this tank. This tank by far has taken me the longest to put together. Most of my tanks, 1 to 3 months. This one, 6 months before I got any animals in there. And I almost did fish. I'm so glad I didn't do fish. I don't know what I would do if I started having fish breed in that 55. I'd have nowhere to put them. Fortunately, in here, these shrimp can breed by the thousands, and I'll be okay. I am going to start selling Blue Dreams here, though, soon, because I don't know what else to do with them. I've asked no one locally aquascapes around here, and I don't know what to do with them. And I can't give them away because it costs $20 to ship to someone. Right, yeah. I knew that when it crossed my mind that I hadn't done Caridina shrimp, they are by far the most sensitive animal that I've ever worked with. They must have a well-established tank, and it's just I don't work, you know, so my hobby is my job. I'm at home all the time. I leave very rarely, and it's because it's easy for me to get sick. And to fix to fix impatience with tanks, get more than one project going on, you know, but also because for me, plants come first. I don't want anything in there until my plants have fully developed, you know, and have grown large to where they can't be picked apart by, by invertebrates or omnivore fish, you know, because omnivore fish will leave larger plants alone, but when they're trying to grow baby plants, their leaves are really small and soft, so it's easy for them to get plucked off. But the reward is your patience pays off through the gratification and the reward of getting to introduce animals into a well-established ecosystem. You know, this is a dirted tank. And I had several professional Caridina breeders tell me that you can't do Caridinas unless you use an active substrate. That trying to do organic soil won't cut it because it won't lower my pH like They're like, no, you got to use ADA, or you got to use Fluval, or you have to use what's it called? King's Shrimp King's active substrate or whatever. And I didn't believe that. No, not a single person agreed with me that I could do it. And they've been alive in here for over a month, and I've seen what happens when you introduce a Caridina into a habitat that's not good. It dies in less than 24 hours, even if you drip acclimate it. The pH needs to be on point, and it must be acidic, at least 6.8 or lower, preferably around 5.5 to 6.2. So what lowers pH? Because no one goes out in the wild, in Taiwan, at the Sulawesi Islands, dumping fluval stratum into the Siri lakes out there. They're living out there in acidic water, so it's wood. And I had put so much birchwood in here that it had made it was dissolving my carbonates like crazy, because you also can't have high carbonates, which seems like a huge contradiction because carbonates control your pH. So how can I have no carbonates, have it extremely acidic, and then also not have a pH crash? So I actually did need to have carbonates because I'm using birchwood. I needed to have just enough carbonates for the birchwood to eat to keep it at 0 and keep it acidic. It wasn't easy to figure out, but I did it. And I have over 60 Caridinas in here without an active substrate, living in dirt and natural wood and plants in a highly acidic environment that I did all for cheap. Some of this wood I found down by the river, so I did sterilize it first, because I am fully aware of what terrestrial driftwood can do to a tank. It will wreak havoc. Planaria, anchorworms, Hydra, all of that stuff. So, but yeah, I did. It's got maybe about 20 pounds worth of birchwood in here, and I figured it out. I wish I could tell everyone exactly how much wood they would need for each tank if they wanted to do it without an active substrate. All I can tell you is you need a lot of patience, and you need to check the water every day until it's reached what you need it at and it's stable and doesn't change, because they can't handle any fluctuation in a pH. They can't handle a pH change of 0.2 in a single day. That's an automatic death sentence for Caridinas. Neocaridinas can handle tiny swings. They're not as sensitive. Right, Amano shrimp are less sensitive. They're much easier to deal with. You're correct. So are ghost shrimp. I'll help you, Casey. Yeah, Casey I've actually met. He's a roommate of one of my friends. So some of you I actually talk on the phone, which is great. I wish I could talk to you all. I mean, sometimes I really wish I could just go to someone's house and show you what I mean. What I keep on my intake is it's filter media. I had some left over. Where did I put it? Did I use it all? I think I used it all. I'll just show you. So right, it is a sponge. It once was a big square sponge. It was meant as a media filter that you put in an HOB, like a replacement for people who don't use carbon, because I don't use carbon in any of my tanks. So it was a square. I cut it in half, cut it until I shaped it into a circle, and then cut out a hole with my scissors. I just stuck my scissors in and snipped out a huge hole for the intake, slipped it on the intake, and then I wrapped a zip tie around it. And that's how I keep it on there. And then once a week I slip it off, and I never have to clear out the filter media inside the actual HOB. And not only that, not only does this stop animals from getting sucked up into your HOB, it also is the one that collects all of the debris. So when it is time for cleaning, this is what needs to get cleaned. All of the heavy debris is kept away from your all of your sponges in your HOB, so they don't get overly crowded with crud and food, algae, waste, etc., debris. And it also stops debris from hitting your impeller. Um, if you've ever noticed you've lost suction on an HOB and it's just not sucking water up and dumping water out as much, and you've cleaned all the filter media really good and it's still moving slow, you'll probably have a bunch of algae that's wrapped around the impeller, and you need to actually take out the motor, pull it apart, pull out the impeller, and you'll see that it's just got tons and tons of crud wrapped around the impeller that spins. That's what creates the suction, and you got to clean that off. This stops impeller clogging and stops crud from building up in your filter, in all the sponge filters and stuff in your HOB. And you don't need to clean them nearly as often, because when you do clean them and wring them out, you do lose some bacteria. So you don't lose bacteria either. Everything gets taken care of through this. And then I just slip it back on. And even if I don't have shrimp, I still use this to save me the hassle of ruining my impeller and saving me the hassle of having to clean out all the media inside of my HOB. All right. That was a mess. Get your hands wet! Right, yeah, Stephen, you're right. You want as much biofilm on there as possible. Right, so it doesn't make them, biofilm doesn't make them reproduce. They're going to do it regardless. What biofilm does is it stops your baby shrimp from dying, because they're the ones who starve. So what happens is babies, when they're born, they're almost microscopic. You can barely see them with the naked eye. So anytime you feed them, feed your fish, whatever that may be, fresh vegetables or shrimp food or whatever, the adults will not let the tiny babies near them. They will literally flick the babies away. So the only thing babies have to eat is biofilm, and biofilm is microalgae. It's small enough for their little claws to pick up and eat, and it's a bit too small for adult a shrimp to graze on. I mean, they'll pick at it here and there, but they'd much rather have a pellet, like this. I give them some pellets. So the reason you want all that biofilm is because the survival rate of your babies will be higher. If all you have are shrimp and you notice babies, but you're only noticing a couple make it, shrimp can have up to 40 babies. So you should be having a very high number of babies happening all the time. If you're not seeing that, you don't have enough biofilm. That's because there's not enough food for them to eat, because the only thing the adults are going to let them eat is biofilm. And if you don't have a lot of biofilm for the babies to eat, you need to buy baby food. And I've been using this Denrelli. It's a powder, so it acts like biofilm. It's a powder, you dump it in, swirl it around, and then it sticks to the glass like biofilm, and the babies will go and graze off of that also. So no, the biofilm doesn't make them want to reproduce. It helps your babies actually survive. If you're not seeing babies, but you've noticed buried, pregnant shrimp, but you don't ever see babies, they're starving. They can starve in 2 days. They need to eat all the time when they're that small, because they grow from tiny to adult in a month. Or juvenile, I should say. Alder cones are great. Yeah, I'll leave those in there. Steven's talking about, hey man, Steven, you live in Singapore? Man, all right, I feel your struggles on all the stuff you have to buy. Man, I'm jealous. You've got a great company there that won't ship to me. It's called Mad Shrimp. Man, their prices on Galaxy Tiger Caridina shrimp are awesome. Dude, they sell them for $10 a piece, when here the Galaxy Tigers are going for $70. And their varieties, oh my God, they sell great boas too, man. And they get boas I can't find anywhere here in America. Okay, so if you're gonna do a water change with shrimp, um, you do want to remineralize the water, and there's stuff that you can buy for that. This is by Brightwell. It's only $10. This is called Caridina GH. So what this does is it only adds calcium and magnesium to remineralize the hardness. So when you're taking water out, test what the general hardness is in the tank. Then you take this and the water you're going to put back in there, you squirt it in there until it matches what the general hardness is in your tank. So that way, whenever you replace the water, you don't send them into a general hardness shock. Where what it does is it causes them to have like an instant failed molt. It'll trigger them to want to go into a molt, and it'll be a failed molt because they don't have enough minerals to successfully remove their shell. Later, Kelly. Catch you next time. Tropical fish are cheap everywhere, man. I mean, maybe the most expensive tropical fish I've seen here are 10 to 15 bucks for like angelfish, but like any type of tetras, you know, $2. Live bearers $2. But then again, I don't know what kind of tropical fish you guys sell there, but here it's mostly tetras, guppies, endlers, angelfish, cichlids, those types. Some of the cichlids can get expensive. But for me, the most expensive inhabitants are definitely caridinas and neocaridina shrimp. Those cost the most. But yeah, Steven, yeah, I'm bummed out. You have to buy I use dirt. You can just use dirt from outside, but I don't know how nutrient rich is. If you're saying it's a desert like you say it is, because I'm from Texas, you can't use the dirt in Texas because it's all loaded with limestone, and it's all mostly rock. It's impossible to grow anything out there unless you dig up a bunch of the dirt and replace it with organic soil. But for me, to dirt a tank and add sand in there, $15-20 max. And then I'll use natural logs like birchwood and stuff that I'll buy that's already treated from like a hardware store. $10 for like 30 pounds of that. You know, I don't buy driftwood anymore. That stuff's expensive. It doesn't matter where you are. People charging $30 for freaking bonsai, dried out bonsai trees and driftwood. And it's like, it's so ridiculous. You can find driftwood literally anywhere. And driftwood isn't just one type of wood. It's dozens and dozens of different types of wood that have been in water and have waterlogged and solidified being waterlogged and are still buoyant. For a mono shrimp, they need a general hardness of at least 7 to have a successful molt. Same with neocaridinas. Ghost shrimp need a little bit harder. They'll need it around 8 or 9. Caridinas, they're the softwater cousins. They need general hardness of 4. Those are some good prices, man. So you got some great prices. And like I said, dude, Steven, if you want to start making a Caridina tank, do it and go to Mad Shrimp. I actually follow them on YouTube. I can't buy anything from them, but I follow them on YouTube because they have Caridina shrimp I've never seen anywhere from any shrimp breeder here in the States. And you want to control your general hardness? It's so easy. I bring this up all the time, and it's not difficult at all. Buy the right buffer, okay? Crushed coral doesn't last forever. It does dissolve, but it does control your carbonate hardness and your general hardness. And you add it to a filter media bag like this. I can't tell you how much to put in there, you know. So you put some in, put it in your tank, let it run for a couple hours, test it. If it's the general hardness isn't high enough, add a little bit more. Test it again in a few hours. And then if it's too high, then take a little out. And you see what I'm saying? You keep going back and forth until you find that number that you need it, and you just keep it the same. I use this Ocean Direct sand because it doesn't dissolve. It lasts forever. It has bits of aragonite in there and other things that last indefinitely. Crushed coral and straight aragonite do dissolve over time, and so do like eggshells and stuff like that for people like me who like to do it naturally. So it's not hard at all. Get a filter media bag and you fill it and you throw it in your HOB. Now, if you're using this is why I like HOBs much better than sponge filters. I don't like sponge filters because for me they don't create enough surface agitation, for one thing, and secondly, I can't DIY and modify them to what I like to do, because HOBs I can change them and add media bags in there to control, my pH, KH, and general hardness, which is what I do in all my tanks. I use RO water in all of them, not just my shrimp tanks, in all my tanks. And then after I remove the carbon filter that it comes with, carbon isn't necessary, I throw that out, and then I'll replace it with a filter media bag of this, put it in there, fill it up with some of this, and just for a few days I fiddle around with the amount until it's reached the carbon hardness, general hardness, and the pH that I want. And obviously the more you have, it's also going to affect your pH too. So as carbonate hardness and general hardness and stuff go up, pH can go with it. But you can always counteract pH with other natural things too, like copious amounts of wood. And for any of you who are here now that are having a discussion with Pippi, she is one of my subscribers. She started following me somewhere near the beginning. I'd been running a channel for about 6 months when she found me. So almost a year or so she's been following me. Her advice is sound. So if she gives you some advice, or some suggestions, take it. She a lot of this stuff she did teach herself. She did learn some things from me, and I'm really proud of the accomplishments that she had. And her tanks are great. She doesn't have very many subscribers, but if you go follow her and look at her 55-gallon tank, she started building hers at the same time I started building mine, and it is awesome. The amount of plants that she's got growing in there, it's crazy. And she did it all dirt and sand, same as what I do in all my tanks. Yes, it's called a general hardness test. But if you just want calcium, because general hardness tests calcium and magnesium, if you just want to test calcium, yeah, you need a test kit for that. There's test kits for everything. You get a test kit just for copper or just for lead. But when you start getting into all of that, the list will never end. I stick with only testing what aquarium testers would test, because those are all that's important when it comes to animals that you keep as pets in aquariums. Those are the only ones that are important. Everything else isn't needed unless it's a food that you added, like a fertilizer for your plants. Hey, thanks, Steven. I appreciate you dropping by. Yeah, thanks, Angie. Thanks to everyone else. And actually, I just realized we've been talking for almost 2 hours. I should probably cut it short. Apparently, there's no time limit. I thought it only gave me an hour. I don't know. So I'm going to call it quits, too, so I can finish doing some of the stuff I need in here. And yeah, I appreciate the few of you that showed up. Thank you so much. And, all of you who have been following me. And, I consider all of you my friends. I enjoy talking to all of you. So, thank you. Catch you next time. Plants! Let's do it!